If you're researching companies that buy structured settlement payments, you've almost certainly come across JG Wentworth, Peachtree, and Strategic Capital. But there's one important fact many people don't really understand until they start comparing offers. So today we'll talk about what that is, how these companies are different, and the questions you should ask any buyer before selling any part of your structured settlement payments. My name is Rachel Goldstein. I'm a licensed attorney, and welcome to the Personal Finance Diaries. I research and write about legal and financial topics every day with a focus on helping people better understand important financial decisions. So my goal isn't to tell you what to do or what choices to make. I'm here to just provide information so that you can make better choices going forward and make sure that what you're doing is really best for your situation. So let's talk about JG Wentworth, Strategic Capital, and Peachtree Financial. One of the most common assumptions people make is that these are three separate companies, three separate entities, and they have nothing to do with each other. However, it's always worth noting that JG Wentworth and Peachtree are owned by the same parent company. This doesn't mean you'll have the exact same experience or get the exact same offer, but this is something that's really important to understand when you're comparing offers. You don't want to go into a meeting and think you're comparing one offer to a brand new offer and not know that they are under the same parent company. So it's just another piece of information that you can use to make the best choice for yourself. Let's start with JG Wentworth, just because that's the company most people typically recognize first.
I have a structured settlement and I need cash now. Call JG Wentworth. It's a cash now.
You've probably heard this before or something similar, one of their commercials, and they've been purchasing structured settlements for decades, and they have one of the largest advertising presence in the industry. So for many people, this is the first company they think to when they want to sell a structured settlement, and it might be the only company they've heard of, actually. When you contact JG Wentworth, the process typically begins by them gathering information about your structured settlement payments, the payment schedule, and how much you're looking to sell. And from there, they'll typically discuss whether they can purchase some or all of it and what that looks like. And this is pretty typical, but one thing I've noticed is that their emphasis tends to be on moving sort of quickly and efficiently, and that's not a criticism necessarily. Everybody wants to get through something efficiently. But for someone who maybe isn't sure yet if they want to sell or how much they want to sell, this can feel a little bit high pressure. So if you're a little bit on the fence, you just want to make sure that you have all of the information before making a choice. And you may want to get even more information about structured settlements in general and do some research before you talk to JG Wentworth at all, just to make sure you aren't pressured into doing something that isn't in your best interest. JG Wentworth does discuss partial sales. Whether they do it up front or you need to bring it up yourself depends on who you speak with. And with any buyer, you should be discussing the possibility of partial sales just to make sure that you're not giving up more than you need to. So for consumers who are very sure that they want to sell and they're just looking to get through this process quickly, JG Wentworth can be exactly what they're looking for. And next is Peachtree Financial. And on the surface, Peachtree is an entirely different company than JG Wentworth. They're just another major competitor in the structured settlement market. The branding is different, their website is different, and naturally many consumers assume that it's just a completely different company. And one of the biggest reasons I wanted to make this video in the first place is because a lot of people don't understand that Peachtree and JG Wentworth are owned by the same parent company. And at this point you might be wondering, okay, they share the same parent company, so what? Who cares? And in some situations it might not matter and it might make no difference. You're going to have an offer from Peachtree Financial, you're going to talk to a different representative, they're going to make their own offer based on the circumstances, but it's really important to know that they are owned by the same company, because you shouldn't think that you're going in and comparing two completely different offers from two completely different companies without knowing that they are operated by the same parent company. So it's just something to consider before making your final choice. Think about it this way. If you were buying a car, you would want to know that the one dealership you're comparing to another dealership are owned by the same company. It doesn't mean it would change your mind. It doesn't mean you wouldn't compare those prices or consider which one to purchase. It might mean, though, that you'd look at a third dealership or a fourth just to make sure you're actually getting competitive rates. So I think the same principle applies here. Just knowing the corporate relationship allows you to make a more informed choice. That's all. And then the third company I wanted to speak about is Strategic Capital. And one of the structural differences that I've noticed with this company is that a lot of their information online and when you speak to someone is about consumer experience and education before the transaction takes place. So rather than assuming that someone is ready to sell, that they should sell their entire settlement payment, they really want to make sure that the person who is selling knows what they're doing, understands the process, and considers the alternatives. And this is just a little bit different than a lot of companies where things are mostly focused on just getting the transaction done. When you browse through Strategic Capital's website, you'll see what I mean, because one of the things you'll come across is this very detailed structured settlement guide, and there's a lot of educational content designed to help consumers understand the process. And this walks readers through the entire process, from what a structured settlement is to how a sale works and how offers are calculated, the court process, pretty much everything. So you have to put in your email address. I already did this for you guys. So here's the guide. And you can see, honestly, just from the table of contents, like how comprehensive it is. Choosing the right company to sell, making your choice, preparing the settlement, managing your money after the sale. And honestly, it's just sort of was like a breath of fresh air to have this much information and this much educational content. And I thought that was just sort of a good indication of what this company is looking at and what they care about. Every consumer's experience is going to be different. I always encourage people to talk to multiple companies, whether that's 3, 4, or 5 companies, it doesn't matter. You need to make sure that you're comparing offers, speaking with the companies, and doing what's best for you. Strategic Capital seems to place more emphasis on the educational part. It doesn't mean that they're the right choice for you. If you already know what you're going to do, you might be totally fine calling up JG Wentworth and selling your structured settlement payments. And even if you don't know what to do, they still might be an okay choice for you. I'm not really pushing one or the other. It's just something to think about as far as, how much a company wants you to know and be educated. I like that. If I'm going to choose a company to work with, it's just something that I would place a high emphasis on. No matter which company or companies you talk to, there are a few questions that I would always ask. So here are a few of the questions that I would always ask, no matter who I'm talking to. First, ask whether a partial sale is an option. So many people don't even realize that this is possible. You may not have to sell all of your payments. This can keep money for you in the future while allowing you to get money up front as well. Ask how your offer is being calculated. Make sure you understand the factors that affect the value of your lump sum offer, because this can help you make a more informed choice. And you should ask all of the companies this, because you can see if they value it differently, and see if one makes more sense or seems more fair than the other. Ask someone to explain the court approval process from beginning to end. Most structured settlement sales require judicial approval, so you should know what to expect moving forward. And the companies will handle this. It's just helpful for you to know what's going on. Ask whether the company is willing to discuss alternatives. Selling your payments might not be the best financial choice. And while I understand that these companies want to buy your settlement, that's how they make money, if you raise the idea of an alternative or not selling and they push back and use high pressure tactics to get you to sell your payments, this might be a little bit of a red flag, and you might want to take a step back and just, talk to another company and see how they respond, or take a break and not talk to a company at all. Just depends what your situation is. And then finally, don't hesitate to ask questions. A company should be willing to explain the process in a way that leaves you feeling informed and comfortable. You shouldn't feel pressured. You shouldn't feel like your questions are stupid. You should feel like the company you're working with actually cares about you and wants you to have this information. There shouldn't be hidden information or secrets or things that you don't understand. So take your time, compare your options, and at the end of the day, just make sure that you feel informed and comfortable before making such an important decision. If there's one thing I'd like you to take away from this video, it's that choosing a structured settlement buyer shouldn't come down to the first offer you get. It shouldn't come down to what's quickest or the first ad you saw. It really should come down to what's best for you. Compare companies, see what they're like, make sure you have information about all of them, if they're connected to each other, and just make sure that you're comfortable with your decision and that you're able to ask questions. Because a little extra research today can help you make a much more informed financial decision. And I hope this was helpful. If you found this video to be useful, consider subscribing to the Personal Finance Diaries, and I hope to see you there.